the way that most of us have life figured out is not only a mistake, but it is an unworkable approach to living. And unless that gets seen, unless that gets appreciated, unless that gets understood, there won't be sufficient motivation and inspiration to practice meditation, because it won't be something that occurs to you that is necessary. It won't be something that occurs to you that is necessary. It'll be something that occurs to you that is interesting, it's interesting, it's cool, it does help with stress, but outside of that, that's about it. And if that's about it, there's no way you're going to develop a practice, especially develop a practice that is sufficient to do the job of changing the brain and changing the mind and changing behavior and changing your life. So in order to do a practice that is sufficient for that, you've got to study the teachings, and the teachings will educate you about reality. The teachings will educate you about the way it really is instead of the way you think it is, the way it really is instead of the way most of humanity thinks it is. And as you study the teachings, you start to see why. You start to see very clearly why suffering is occurring for most of humanity. You start to see it because you start to see it as you start to see it from your own viewpoint. You start to see it in terms of your own personal experience of living. You start to see, that as long as you live your life as a thought process, as long as you live your life allowing the mind to do what it does and allowing your emotions to run wild and do what they do, you're living at the effect of your own mind. Your mind and your brain have been conditioned for survival. That's not a bad thing. The survival of the body is necessary, otherwise the game's over, right? But the mind and the brain go way beyond survival of the physical body. The mind and the brain turn life into a pressure cooker. The mind and the brain turn life into a drama. The mind and the brain turn life into something to be concerned about. We live in a concerned state. We live in a fear-based, emotional, concerned state, and we're constantly trying to win this game that we're playing. And we learn very early on the game we're playing is about pursuing happiness. The game we're playing is about getting what we want, getting what the TV tells us we should be having, about making money, about getting the things that complete the picture that's necessary to get completed in order to call your life workable. What's that mean? It means get the relationship, get the money, get the house, get the car. And all of what we see on the news that's going on in the world are people chasing that dream. That's all. Everybody's pursuing happiness because everybody believes that happiness is a function of getting what you want. Everybody believes that the picture is realistic, and therefore I will get up every day and go to work to try and get that picture to be my life. And then I'll be okay, and then I'll be happy. And it's interesting that very few people notice that it's not working. When you start to practice meditation and you start to study the teachings and you start to wake up from the dream and you start to see things as they really are, it's really amazing that people continue to do what doesn't work with a relentless idea that somehow, someday it will. If I just keep plugging away at it day after day, if I just keep buying those lottery tickets, if I just keep thinking about what I want and then behaving in a way to bring about getting that. That's why the law of attraction is so attractive. The law of attraction is so attractive to people because they think, oh, really? There's something that I can practice that will give me everything that I ever wanted? That solves my problems, because then I will not only pursue happiness, I will get happiness. And so I'm very interested in anything that's going to give me that. And so the law of attraction sells 1 million copies. And it doesn't work. Why doesn't it work? Well, the thing about it that's interesting is that it actually does work, but human beings in the condition they're in are unable to do what it tells you to do, right? What's the law of attraction say? It says anything that you're fixated on, anything that you think about all the time will end up happening. You know? If anything that you're obsessed about, your behavior will become consistent with that obsession, right? You will be attracted to anything that might bring that to you, right? And so you will end up succeeding at whatever it is that you're aiming for and getting what you want. The only problem is, which is obvious but goes unnoticed, right? The only problem is nobody has the ability to pay attention to anything that long. That's why we're practicing meditation, because you can't pay attention to your breath that long. How are you going to pay attention to what you want that long, right? You know, and that'll keep getting interrupted all day long, you know, by the little things that bug us, by all of the things that get in our way, you know, by all of the unexpected things that happen, you know, that cause us to get upset, right? Because we live our life with this childish, naive notion about what's happening, that it should be the way I want it all the time. And if it's not, that's not right. That's not good. That's unacceptable, as a matter of fact. And because that's the case, when that happens, I get upset. When my expectations don't get met, I get upset. I don't like it. I don't like it. And I start paying attention to what's causing that to be the case. And if it's my wife, I'm going to have to call a lawyer. If it's my kids, I'm going to have to start reading books on parenting and, you know, show them what hard love is all about, you know. So this is the game we're playing all the time. We're trying to figure it out, to get the right answers. You know, they asked a famous British philosopher on his deathbed, right? They figured, you know, this guy's been a famous, forget what his name was, famous British philosopher. He was on his deathbed, and they figured, well, this guy's been a famous philosopher all his life. He's about to die. Maybe he can give us some clues about the truth. So they said to him, what's the answer? And he said, what's the question? And he was really giving them an answer, right? But most people wouldn't get that. They would just think it was a bad joke. Most of us are living in a condition. Meditation is a practice that can get us out of that condition. The condition is a condition in which we're living at the effect of our own mind and our own nervous system. We're living at the effect of a mental state that is operating, and this mental state is operating all the time, generating thoughts that occur in this space that we could call our mind. You know, the space that we could call our mind. That's where the thinking is happening. That's where the visions, the visualizations occur. That's where your dream happens at night when you're sleeping. That's where the emotions are being experienced, right? There's this constant voice in your head talking about everything. It's a narrative. It's telling you what's going on. It's telling you what's wrong with what's going on, what's right with what's going on. And the thing that makes it, the thing that really makes it cynical is that we have learned very early on in our life to identify with this mental state, this mental condition that's going on, so that the voice there that's talking is considered to be me. That guarantees insanity. If you consider yourself to be the voice in your head, right? And you start paying attention to what that voice says, the only conclusion you can arrive at is that you're crazy. If you really look at what that voice is saying all the time, you know, it's making people wrong, it's making you wrong, right? It's resisting reality. It's resisting reality, right? It's talking about how terrible it is, how awful it is. It keeps repeating to you what you want. It keeps telling you what's wrong with other people in life. It keeps you in this negative state that could only be called crazy. So the purpose of meditation is to come to the understanding through the teachings and the practice that this space called the mind is a space that you can actually take responsibility for and start to get involved with and clean the mess up that's there, right? You can start to realize that, you know, most people, when I look back at it in my own life, I consider it to be a major revelation when I realized, you know, that I don't have to think the thoughts that I think. I don't have to think those thoughts. If I relate to my thinking, if I identify with my thinking like it's me, I am the voice, then you wouldn't question it, would you? Because you are it. You are the source of the voice. So if the voice is crazy, you're crazy. That's the end of the story. But one of the things you realize through the practice and the teachings is that you are not the voice. And if you are not the voice, you can start to pay attention to the voice. And when the voice goes off the rails, you can see how it was torturing you by doing that. You can see how it was driving you crazy by doing that. It's energy. See, if the way we're living our lives is to reject and resist what's happening, and that's a two-way operation. I'm rejecting this and I'm rejecting this, right? So when I get angry, I don't want to be angry. So I'm rejecting the anger. Well, the anger is energy. Emotion is energy. Emotion, it's energy. If I reject the anger, which means I'm not willing to experience it. That's the rejection. I'm not willing to experience that. I don't like that. So that energy gets pushed down into the system. The energy is now stuck in the nervous system. It's stuck in the muscle tension, right? And every time something happens that's similar to the event that started me to be angry, it comes up again, okay? And so you feel this in your body. You feel these tensions and you feel these sensations.
Yeah.
Huh? Here?
That's exactly how I feel, yeah, like in my chest.
Yeah.
Just recently.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Yeah, it's called anxiety.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm associating that with thoughts, and I can be like, oh, it's because you're on this trail of craziness. But now it's just like in my body only.
Well, it is associated with thoughts because thoughts and emotions interact, mind-body interaction. If I think angry thoughts, I feel anger. If I feel anger, I think angry thoughts. It's an interactive reality. So dealing with the thought activity and reducing the activity and turning your attention away from that activity will help to start to calm the system down. But as you said, there is energy that has accumulated in the muscle system and the nervous system over the years of all the unexperienced feelings that I didn't want to feel, that I rejected feeling, right? So what to do? There is an aspect of practice that's called releasing. Is anybody familiar with it? Heard that term, releasing? No? Lester Levinson was an awakened human being who focused a lot on the releasing activity and the releasing process, and he ended up calling it the Sedona method.
Oh, yeah, you've talked about that before.
The Sedona method.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Sedona method is a method of releasing. What's releasing? Releasing is a specific way of relating to emotional energy that allows it to disperse. That's what a release is. So releasing means that you train yourself to be aware of the sensations in the body when they occur. This is separate from the thinking activity. Be aware of the sensations in the body when they occur, right? And give them attention. Don't identify with them. It's not my feeling. I am not angry. Anger has occurred in my nervous system. So you got to get clear about that, right? So when the anger occurs in my nervous system, I become aware of it. I notice where the sensations are in my body. Just becoming more aware of your body allows you to do work like this. So I notice it in my body, and I stay present to it. I don't try and change it. I don't contribute to it by allowing myself to get into a thinking process that just stimulates it more, right? So I don't get into a thought process about it. I keep my focus of attention on the sensations themselves, just watching the sensations, and allowing myself to experience the emotion that's there that I rejected in the past. That's a release. Experiencing. So I may feel some anger. I may feel some sadness. I may cry. I may scream. See, so when you're practicing meditation, you're relaxing the system and you're being receptive. One of the things that will happen down the road as you do this, right, is emotions will start to come up. You will start to feel anxiety. You will start to feel more tension. You will start to feel frustration. You may feel despair. Despair is a very important experience to have, right? Why? Because if all you have to live your life with is the conditioning that you've experienced and what you have been taught to, and believed is real and taught to do as far as how you live your life, if that's all you have to work with, you're desperate. You should be desperate. You have to be desperate to give that up because most of the world's playing that game, right? And it's either going to be that the rest of your life is going to be trying as hard as you can to play that game and win that game and the more you get, the worse it gets. That's the one thing, the other thing that people don't realize. You know, people think the more you get, the better it gets. No, the people that get a lot and become millionaires and billionaires, right? They're not going to come out and be honest with you and tell you this is worse than it ever was. They're not going to say that, right? Because the ego wants to look good. So they want you to see them as a success. I mean, after all, if I've given up my life to get this money, I'm not going to admit to you that I made a big mistake. No, I'm going to act like I won. I'm going to act like this is true and you should want what I have. But if you really pay close attention to people that have a lot of money, you'll see right through that. They're miserable. I mean, imagine, if you're struggling with managing the little bit of money that you and I have, how about if you had $1 billion and you had to try and manage that? You had to try and trust people to manage that, right? You know, Leonard Cohen was one of my favorite performers. And he worked most of his life, I think he was in his 50s, maybe his 60s, when he found out that his manager stole everything. He was broke. Worked all of his life, you know, with all the record albums and, you know, all of it, right? And he was broke. Good for him, though, he had studied Zen and was practicing Zen. He was actually a student of my teacher, right? And because that was the case, he remained calm and grounded. If you look at some of the videos on YouTube of him around that time, and if you knew that this is around the time when that happened, right? You wouldn't believe it, given how relaxed he was, given how calm he was. And there's a lot of videos of him practicing with his teacher. So what did he do? He went back on the road. He went back on the road for a decade, made the money back again, right? And just before he died from leukemia, he was very calm and very relaxed and very happy about the fact that he could leave that for his family. So that's a transformation, right? That's not only a transformation, it's a transcendence. He transcended his conditioning. He transcended his past. He even transcended his future, right? So this is transcendental. The practice of meditation in these teachings is transcendental wisdom, and it's transformational. It will transform your identity. You will discover who you really are, and discover that's not who you thought you were. That's a transformation. And it's transcendental in that you will rise above the suffering. You will rise above the suffering. That's what they meant when they said you are in this world but not of it. You will rise above the suffering because your identity will be an identity that is already fulfilled. You'll be off the game board. You'll stop pursuing happiness because you'll have discovered the fact that you were already happy. You've always been happy, satisfied, and peaceful. You know, but once you got hypnotized by the condition that keeps getting passed along from generation to generation, you lost that very soon, or you lost that very early on in life. When you're a baby and an infant, you're in a natural state, right? If you look at babies are enlightened human beings. Babies are enlightened human beings. They're experiencing everything as it is because they haven't learned otherwise. They're just being there. If what's happening is satisfying, and if what's happening is relaxing, and you know they're smiling and they're laughing. If their diaper's dirty, they cry. If they're hungry, they cry. When that gets fixed, they smile. It's a very natural state of existence, right? They're not worried about anything. They're not thinking about anything, right? And as soon as the thinking activity starts for a baby, we fill their mind with shit. And they don't know that happened to them, and we don't know that we're doing it to them. And so the thing just keeps getting passed on from generation to generation. So that's what I would recommend to you is to if you Lester Levinson's work is still being done, and it's interesting. Recently, the guy who is, I can't think of the guy's name, Haskin or something. If you look it up, if you look up the Sedona method, his name will come up on the internet. And he's doing workshops and seminars all the time. And he's been doing presentations along with mindfulness teachers, doing presentations along with meditation teachers. He's done presentations with Rupert Spira. He's done meditation, he's done presentations with other people like that to try and show that this is all an integrated reality. It's all an integrated. So it's important to study. Part of what there is to study is releasing. What is releasing? How do I practice releasing emotional energy? So that as I go through my day and things trigger me and stimulate that unexperienced emotion, right? Because and now I have an education about it, because I'm aware of it, I know what's going on. When it's coming up now, right? I don't allow myself to get confused about it and think you're making me angry anymore. No, now I realize the anger is already in my nervous system, you just stimulated it. And because that's the case, when it comes up and I'm feeling it, I can go into a release process. Instead of screaming at you, I can go into a release process and let the anger dissipate. And also, because I've developed my ability to pay attention and see things as they really are, I can see how to be related to you in a way that'll work instead of just be angry with you. So see, the thing that Leonard Cohen discovered is this works. This actually works. This is not psychotherapy. This is not brain surgery, right? This is a practice. And if you do the practice and study the teachings, and you do it with the commitment necessary and the conviction necessary, and you do it consistently over time, eventually you'll start seeing it working. There are people here right now, that have gotten you've gotten into this far enough now that you can start to see how it works. You can start to see how it works. And what happens with the teaching is, if you study the teaching for a while and you get it from a variety of places, right? You can study from Greek philosophy, you can study from Taoism, you can study from Zen, you can study from Buddhism, you can study from mystical Christianity, you can study it from, I was working with one of my clients who's Jewish, and he's studying it from the Kabbalah, which is the mystical Jewish teaching. But they're all the same at that level. And if you study these things from all of these different areas and do the practices, eventually what happens is you start seeing it for yourself. You start seeing it for yourself.